So let me ask you, since this is a dad podcast, you've got a son, 35, he's got a child. What would you, I've got two boys. They're still 8 and 6 and a
Oh, good
3-year-old
fun.
girl.
Good fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right up in it. These are things that I think about, like you're saying, maybe some of the most important lessons that I can impart on my kids that are these things that you did with your son or you didn't realize them that you were later. What kind of advice would you give to dads, maybe that do have teenagers or even just kind of cultivating this mindset as their kids grow up so they can kind of impart this kind of wisdom, or do they just have to learn on their own and learn through failure?
Well, we all are going to learn through trial and error. We all are. Like I said, I see my son. He's an excellent dad. I mean, he's a custodial parent. My granddaughter's mother had issues, and my son got to be custodial parent, and he's just great. And I mean, since my granddaughter was like 2, he'd get down on one knee and talk to her. And never talked baby talk to her, never talked down to her. You get down, look her in the eye when she was 2. I mean, I'm talking about my son who's like 6'1", AAU weightlifting champion, national weightlifting champion at 15, lettered in multiple sports in high school, went into the Marines, was in Iraq and Fallujah, knows martial arts, knows guns. I mean, he's just this big hulk of a guy. And here he is down on one knee with his little daughter looking her in the eyes, explaining that. Remember, we talked about we weren't going to do that. You remember that, right? Here's how we're going to do it. I watched this stuff when he was just, in his 20s with my granddaughter going, where did he learn to do that? He's such a good dad. But he's got his own issues. He can be a little bit of a helicopter dad, sometimes trying to protect his daughter a little too much, sometimes, making a little bit too big a deal about what she eats or doesn't eat. I get all that. So let me just throw out just a couple things about dad. When I talk with men, I've been working with men for mostly just men for 20, 25 years, and they bring up their dad issues. One of the things that really I see a lot of is that the boy, the adult now, as a boy growing up, never experienced his father coming into his world and wanting to know him and be a part of his world. Now, my dad did in a lot of ways. He had his own flaws, but I remember he came to all my practices. We'd go to the schoolyard and he'd pitch to us. We'd hit fly balls. We'd play catch out my earliest memory is my dad buying me a bat and ball, my first hard ball, him pitching to me in the front yard and me hitting it through my parents' bedroom window and shattering the glass. And he didn't get mad about that. He was the one pitching the hard ball. He bought me the hard ball. So my dad, he took us camping, he took us fishing, and those were all things I really enjoyed. Now, on the other side of that, my younger brother wasn't as much into those things. He's more into playing music and other things. And because that wasn't my dad's gig, they never really bonded or connected. So one thing the way I put it, I tell dads, learn to speak your child's language. And if you have more than one, they all pop out different. If you have a boy and a girl, they're probably going to be different. But learn their language. If it's a little girl and if it's ponies and rainbows and Elsa from Frozen, learn about that. I've seen so many, Pixar and Disney movies in Spanish, with my stepkids. Now with my stepson now, his language is different than what my biological son's was. My son played sports, he skied, he snowboarded, was into martial arts, and whereas my stepson now has different interests, and so I watch the music the videos that he watches, the music, and I know about Bad Bunny and all these other. I'm thinking. It's probably how my parents were with what I listened to. So I try to pay attention to what's going on in his world. What is his language? What's important to him? And he loves Adidas sneakers. So I like surprising them when I travel. Bringing back a different pair of Adidas sneakers for him. That's his language, right? That's what's important to him. And so that's one thing I would say. Know your kids well enough and take the time to go into their world with them. Now, you also, as you do that, you can then introduce them into the things that you believe are important for them. And I think the number one job of parenting is to raise mature, happy, functioning adults, right? So, what do your kids need to learn? Well, they need to learn how to do math. They need to learn how to appreciate reading. They need to learn how to, I used to say balance a checkbook, but nobody does that anymore. They need to learn how to pump gas. Well, down here in Mexico, you don't. They pump it. But there are life skills that they need, and that's our job as well, to teach them the life skills. Now, I've often said I don't have many regrets in life. I've made a lot of mistakes, but they've been good learning experiences. But the one regret that I do have with my son is that as a kid, he often wanted me to read to him and tell him stories, like at bedtime. And I was too emotionally fused with my second wife, and I got to go get back to her and make her happy, and blah blah blah. And I look back on that, and I if I'd say one thing I wish I would have done more is read to him, make up stories with him, just have that time. So there's really a key factor here of just the time it takes. Now, it doesn't necessarily take as much time as we might think. Like I said, with my two stepkids, they don't speak, well, they're learning English in school. And my Spanish, I can get around and I get along. And my wife and I only speak Spanish, but with them, we have a little harder time communicating. So I just try to spend time, even we're not talking much, just time, with them, doing things, being physically affectionate with them. If nothing else, them just knowing there's this man in their house that loves them. And so if your kids, know you love them, and if at all possible, if you're with your kid's mother, I heard or read years ago, said the best thing you can do for your children is love their mother, which goes back to really the relation stuff we've been talking about. Show the kids what mature adults look like in relationship. That doesn't mean you got to be perfect, but show them what it looks like to work through difficulty and come out the other side of it, to be affectionate, to be loving. Because believe it or not, most of the adults I work with, when I do often a visualization of a reparenting visualization with them, where I have them imagine that they're a child walking into their childhood home and they see their parents sitting on the couch being affectionate and loving to each other. And then, hey, come here, and they're affectionate and loving to him. And then I do a whole little scenario of going for a picnic and this. The response that most people have to that is what planet does that exist on? But the number one thing is most people cannot imagine their parents being loving and affectionate with each other. Now, I'm grateful for all my parents' flaws. They did seem to have an affectionate relationship. They weren't particularly physically affectionate with us kids, but they were with each other. But most people can't even imagine their parents sitting close to each other on a couch, smiling and being happy and being loving and affectionate towards their kids. For most people I work with, they go, that didn't happen in my world. I can't even imagine that. So people listening, use your relationship as that powerful personal growth machine. Use your partner as a chance to both grow, work on your issues, but also use it as that petri dish, that test tube in which you're raising your kids, where they get to see people loving each other and working through problems and supporting each other. Let your kids see that. If you can give them that, that's so amazingly valuable.
That's incredible advice. And I could do this for another couple hours, but that's a great moment to end on. Dr. Robert Glover, tell people where they can find some of your work. I know your book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, I highly recommend to everybody. And also what you said about guys finding, whether it's a men's group or just other guys that they can be vulnerable with. I think that's something that a lot of us don't do, that I think is great advice.
Yeah. So, I'm easy to find. That my website is just drglover.com, drglover.com. If they Google No More Mr. Nice Guy, if they Google Robert Glover, I've got the top 10 entries on both of those searches. I even beat out Alice Cooper for No More Mr. Nice Guy. I was going to say something else, but forgot what it was. So just come look. What I was going to say, you mentioned the men's groups, and even if they just email me, robert@drglover.com, say they're looking for a group or looking for a coach. I've got an assistant that is all he does for me is answer emails and point people to resources for doing this kind of work. So send me an email and I'll have my assistant get back to them.
Well, this is one of the favorite interviews I've done, Dr. Glover. I appreciate you being on and sharing this wisdom with other dads. And hopefully we will stay in touch and talk soon.
Rob, this was fun. Thanks for the invitation. And yeah, would love to talk again.
All right. See ya.